Pokémon is the most popular video game franchise. The success that the Pokémon Company, in collaboration with Game Freak, has created, is undeniable. With over 90 video games and thousands of merchandise products, Pokémon has had a cultural impact like no other. Everywhere we can see references to Pokémon, both in series and movies, as well as in video games. In this video, we will see some curiosities, as well as some disturbing facts and events about Pokémon. As always, we will start at level 1, and slowly advance to level 5, where the most curious and intriguing things are found. Level 1. Pokémon was created in 1996, with two versions, Pocket Monsters Red and Green. A year later it would have an anime version, in which the protagonist is Ash Ketchum. He dreams of being the best Pokémon trainer. This is something we all know. Throughout the years, the Pokémon anime has continued to be broadcasted. However, Ash had not been able to reach his goal, always ending up being surpassed by someone else. Despite not being world champion, Ash has managed to win 2 titles. One of them is the Orange League, which is an exclusive league of the anime. The other one is the Alola Regional League, where he beat Gladio and was champion. This allowed him to access the 8 Masters tournament of the World Series. It would take 25 years for Ash to finally become champion, after defeating Leon. This event was recognized worldwide by all Pokémon fans, who grew up watching Ash's adventures since his departure from Pallet Town. Even in Japan, you could watch Ash's award ceremony on the city screens. Now what everyone is wondering is, what will be Ash's goal in the anime, or if he will no longer be the protagonist. Real animals inspired the design of some Pokémon throughout the games, and also appear as references in the dialogue and artwork of each generation. Some well-known Pokémon are inspired by real animals, even without major changes, such as Caterpie, which looks a lot like a swallowtail caterpillar of the eastern tiger, but that doesn't confirm the animal's existence in the Pokémon world. Finding references in the games is relatively complicated, but players can stumble upon them by talking to NPCs. In Generation 1, talking to a chef aboard the SS and reveals that the ship's menu includes dishes that mention several real animals: grilled eels, salmon salad, and prime steak. This is repeated in later games such as Pokémon X and Y, where players can enjoy fish served in restaurants in Lumiose City. The mention of real animals on menu suggests the existence and raising of real animals such as livestock. They have also made visual appearances, in some installments such as in the first generation, in the Bird Keeper class, with a sprite depicting a real bird perched on its arm, and a mosquito-like insect depicted in the old Amber artwork. It seems that the games have taken a slightly different approach to indicate that some real-life animals coexist with Pokémon. As we have just seen, Pokémon are the substitution of real animals in the fictional world. If humans eat animals, do trainers eat Pokémon too? The proof is in the early episodes of the anime, where the creators were less careful about showing some things, including seeing Pokémon as edible animals. For example, this image of Brock and Ash drooling over a Magikarp sashimi is obvious proof. Although there are no references to eating Pokémon in the video games, there is talk of derived products. In Pokémon Gold and Silver, the Pokédex claims that children drink Miltank milk to become stronger and healthier. In fact, in the Johto region, poachers were known to capture Slowpoke to cut off their tails and sell them, as they are considered a delicacy for their sweet substances. All this makes it clear that Pokémon are definitely used for gastronomic purposes in some cases. There are 2 theories about the true origin of Voltorb. The first one is that, taking into account its similarity to a Pokéball and that they are always in laboratories or power plants, Voltorb is a Pokéball that, by exposure to the high electrical intensity of these places, comes to life. Which would mean that it is an artificial Pokémon. And the other theory is that Voltorb is a Pokéball possessed by a haunter. This theory is strengthened by the great resemblance of the expression of the eyes of the two. It would also explain the reason for the self-destruction attack, which would be an attempt by Haunter to free itself. The story of Cubone, a Pokémon of the first generation, was presented in a very sad context. Cubone was apparently an ordinary Pokémon until his mother died in tragic circumstances. Since then, this Pokémon has been wearing its mother's skull on its head. Cubone avoids any social interaction whenever it can, because of the trauma it went through as a child, and it often cries a lot over the loss of its mother. The Pokédex specifies that his crying intensifies on full moon nights, where he sees his mother reflected on the lunar surface. Now, if this had been a unique case and the normal Cubone did not have that bone helmet, everything would have remained a tragic story of a small Pokémon, but the problem is complicated when in the Pokémon world it is discovered that all Cubone have the same characteristic and even its evolution Marowak as well. The only thing that differentiates them is that the Marowak have a full hull and not cracked as the Cubone have it for crying a lot. The little Pokémon is supposed to evolve after it has completely overcome the death of its mother. Because of the size and shape of the skull on their heads, fans have theorized that they are Kangaskhan hatchlings. Kangaskhan are huge Pokémon that often carry their young in fur pouches, like kangaroos. The Pokédex itself describes them as very maternal creatures that take care of their baby. Another argument for this theory appears in Pokémon Red, Green and Blue with the strange creature called M, a creature that corrupts the game and renders it useless. The few Pokémon trainers who have caught one of these creatures discovered that at level 1, and exposing it to a rare candy, M evolves into a Kangaskhan, which isn't supposed to have evolutions. Many think that this Pokémon was to be a legitimate creature that uses a complex evolution and growth method with Kangaskhan. It seems that M would have the possibility of becoming Cubone or Kangaskhan, but in the end the developers decided to simplify things and leave this unanswered. This theory says that Gengar is actually the shadow of a Clefable. This theory is very prevalent. There seems to be all kinds of evidence to back it up, even in Pokédex entries, but not everyone agrees with this theory. Some of the things that support this theory are as follows. They both have similar physical characteristics, including pointed ears, back, and body shape. Since Clefable is a normal type Pokémon, at least until Generation 5, and Gengar is a ghost type, neither can harm the other. Gengar's Pokédex entry calls it the Shadow Pokémon, and says that it likes to act as the shadows of others at night. It even adds the possibility that Gengar's name is derived from doppelganger, suggesting that it likes to mimic someone, possibly Clefable. Level 2. Pokémon Sword and Shield was affected because many fans began to complain prior to the game's release that Game Freak recycled the animations from previous games for their new release, and in some cases the animations were even worse than the previous ones. But this isn't something new, as Game Freak has been doing this practice for a long time, which is why at least one game of the saga can be produced annually. With the arrival of Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, it seems that Game Freak has paid more attention to this, and has improved this aspect, but even so, Pokémon Legends Arceus, an older title, seems to have better animations in some cases. The Bill's Secret Garden legend is an urban legend revolving around outside the house of the character Bill, the scientist. A narrow grassy path can be seen, stretching north of the house. Unfortunately for curious players, there is no legitimate way to follow this path and see where it leads. The hypothetical area to which the path led became known as Bill's Secret Garden, and rumors spread that extremely rare Pokémon could be found there. By hacking the game, it is possible to follow the path, but it only leads to a patch of land. No Pokémon whatsoever, or any other secrets for that matter, can be found here. Mimikyu, aesthetically, refers to ghost costumes, with a sheet, and its concept is an Ikiryo, a Japanese manifestation of a living person's soul, separated from a body, and which traditionally, if someone has enough of a grudge against another person, it is believed that part or all of their soul can temporarily leave their body, and appear before the target of their hatred, in order to curse or harm them. This in reference to Mimikyu's innocent hatred of not being like Pikachu. In the anime, Chapter 12 of the Pokémon Sun and Moon series, Mimikyu's supposed hidden appearance was revealed. Being exclusively from the anime, many fans do not consider this to be Mimikyu's true form, as in the video games there has not been a hint of his true appearance. During Pokemon Red, approximately halfway through the game, you fight Gary, or also known as Blue, on a ship called the SS Anne. His team includes a Pidgeotto, a Raticate, a Kadabra, and a level 20 version of his starter. Most of these Pokemon are the evolved versions of Pokemon you battled earlier in the game. However, the next time you encounter Gary, his Raticate is gone. In its place, he has a Pidgeotto, a Gyarados, a Growlithe and a Kadabra. Some Pokemon conspiracy theorists believe the answer lies in Lavender Town. The Pokemon Tower is famous for being a Pokemon graveyard, and while the player visits the location to investigate a haunting, it is unclear why Gary is there. Some fans assume that Gary is at the Pokemon Tower to visit the grave of his Pokemon, his Raticate. According to a popular theory, Raticate was severely injured in the battle against the player on the SS Anne. Due to confusion aboard the ship, Gary was not able to get to a Poke Center fast enough to heal Raticate, resulting in the Pokemon's death. The anime is known for taking creative liberties with its adaptation of the popular game of the same name. Whether it's having gym leaders travel with the main character or changing the way the combat works, most of the effort goes into making the game's story more suitable for an anime series. Pokemon size changes is one of them. The anime doesn't always prioritize having the size of the Pokemon exactly as specified in the Pokédex. Instead, they adjust these sizes to fit the story. A number of intentional size variations were made throughout the anime's run. Large Pokemon are often designed to appear much larger than they actually are. According to the Pokédex, many Pokemon, for example, are not much taller than 5 feet 7 inches. That wouldn't put them any taller than the average adult male. For example, Pokemon like Blastoise, Machamp, Metagross, and Emboar are only about 5 feet 3 inches tall. However, in the anime, they are made to tower over any human in the scene, which can make them as tall as 7 feet tall. From a technical point of view, Pokemon Red and Blue are full of loopholes within their code, which over time, it was discovered could be exploited to do all sorts of crazy things. The science behind this has to do with how easily manipulated the games were at the time, especially one like Pokemon, which required a great deal of ingenuity to make such a complex and large world work on a machine like the Game Boy. This included the need to leave several blocks of information empty, which could be accessed without having to modify the game. And one of those evidences that the game could be manipulated in ways its creators never thought possible was Missingno. Missingno doesn't look much like a Pokemon. In fact, its appearance simply demonstrates what it really is, a system glitch, a bug that perhaps should never have been found. Missingno is actually short for missing number, the designation the system delivers when the game was supposed to display a Pokemon, but the data block it referred to was empty. Missingno is actually the product of the game trying to display a Pokemon that is outside the data that records the original 151. The glitch forces the system to fetch data from a Pokemon in an area of its memory filled with empty data. Level 3. Pokemon wouldn't live up to its name if it weren't for Pokeballs, which are a convenient invention that can hold any Pokemon inside. There are different variations of Pokeballs, and it is even possible to create them from organic materials. But what exactly happens inside a Pokeball? In an interview, Pokemon composer and director Junichi Masuda said that the inside of a Pokeball is like an elegant suite in a luxury hotel. For this reason, it seems that the Pokemon would indeed spend time relaxing and away from its surroundings. However, there are still thousands of questions about the Pokeballs. For example, in video games, Pokemon do not seem to suffer from the passage of time. One possible explanation for this would be that time slows down once the Pokemon enters its Pokeball. In relation to poison in some of the video games in this franchise, we can observe that, when a Pokemon is poisoned, it continuously loses health. This is according to the number of steps we take to the Pokemon Center where it is cured. If the Pokemon's fitness is suspended when they enter the Pokeball, they should not take damage after finishing a battle. The most logical thing to say would be that Pokemon continue to age in their Pokeball, although nothing is confirmed. A more disturbing question would be, what happens if a Pokemon dies while in its Pokeball, and in case its trainer wants to use it to fight, what would happen then? Machoke is a first-generation fighting Pokemon. Its evolution is Machamp by exchange, and it is the evolution of Machop. It is characterized by being muscular, with a human form and a belt that it wears. According to the Pokédex of Pokemon Emerald, Machoke wears a belt to control its overwhelming strength, as it is so dangerous nobody has ever taken it off. The marks that Machoke has are due to his muscles growing too much, causing them to damage his own skin, tearing it. The belt is a mark to limit his strength, as the Pokédex says, otherwise his muscles would grow too much, and although it is nothing official, it is believed that they could die. This theory says that N would have been an illusion of Zoroark all this time, being himself the one pulling its strings as a trainer. Throughout the games, we have encountered people who are actually illusions of this Pokemon, and this case could be no different. Especially considering that Zoroark illusions have been able to speak the language of humans. This theory is intensified by a moment in Pokemon Black and White, where a Zoroark runs all the way into the ruins of N's castle, and when we chase after it, it doesn't reappear, but rather N himself is at the location. Could it be that this Zoroark transformed into N before we arrived? Another thing that reinforces this theory is that we have Gets's statements throughout the game, where he states that N has the heart of a Pokemon, something that we all assumed was a metaphor, but could have a somewhat more literal meaning. The first generation of Pokemon boasts some of the most popular and beloved Pokemon of the saga, although not for everyone, because the illusionist Uri Geller never liked Kadabra, a psychic Pokemon that carries a spoon in its hand and is able to bend it with its mind. This very magic trick is one of those that made Uri Geller so popular and precisely why he accused Nintendo of having created a character based on him. He claimed that Kadabra imitated his same trick, and also his name in Japanese, Yunjur, was too similar to his own, so he accused the Big N of using such a character without his consent, which led him to request that he should not appear again in the Pokemon trading card game cards. It was then that in 2000, he filed a lawsuit that resulted in Kadabra not appearing in the card game since 2003, as Nintendo agreed. In spite of everything, the situation will return to normal, because after 20 years, Uri Geller has published a statement on his Twitter account, in which he deeply apologizes for the lawsuit he filed against Nintendo, thus communicating that he was withdrawing the lawsuit he had placed, so that cards featuring Kadabra can be manufactured again. For background, it should be noted that the origin of Ditto is one of the biggest secrets in the Pokemon universe, although there is a belief in the community that this species was born during the failed Mew cloning experiments, which resulted in the mighty Mewtwo. There is no official proof to confirm this, although the Pokemon Company and Game Freak have released some clues that could confirm it. These include that the two Pokemon have the same weight and their shiny version is identical, as well as sharing the same shade of pink in their normal versions. Both are the only Pokemon in all of the existing Pokédex that can learn the transformation move, and if that wasn't enough, in the original titles, Ditto could be found in the Pokemon Mansion and the Celestial Cave, two of the places associated with Mew and Mewtwo. Even with the appearance of Mew in Pokemon Go, one of the tasks to get it added to the Pokédex was to catch a Ditto. But for now, it doesn't look like Game Freak has any intention of officially solving this mystery. As all fans know, Oak is the Pokemon professor of the Kanto region and Ash Ketchum's main mentor in the anime. He studies Pokemon and is recognized as the foremost eminence when it comes to Pokemon. As it turns out, hidden within the internal data of the first generation is an unused battle against Professor Oak. He is the strongest trainer of the entire generation, and his team includes the starting Pokemon not chosen by you and your rival. Level 4. The Mew Under the Truck legend is an urban legend of the first game of the series. Near the SS and ship, in Vermilion City, there is a secret ledge that is home to a single pickup truck of unknown origin. The only way to access this ledge is to have a Pokemon use the move Surf, which allows you to cross water and surf around the ship. Unfortunately, under normal circumstances, the ship leaves forever before players would obtain Surf. Players have found ways to get around this, either by trading in a Pokemon from another game that already possesses Surf, or by intentionally losing a battle on the ship after obtaining the move, sending them back to town, without triggering the departure of the ship. Although Nintendo has yet to explain the purpose of the truck, players began spreading rumors that either a rare item, or the rare Pokemon known as Mew, could be found underneath the truck. While this was not true initially, later releases of the games did hide a rare item underneath as a reference to the original rumor. The Pokemon War is an event that happened chronologically before the beginning of the first generation. This arises due to a dialogue by Surge, leader of the Electric-type gym, who says the following. "I tell you kid, electric Pokemon saved me during the war." There is not much information about this event, so theories are the main source of information. There are those who say that a civil war occurred. According to this idea, it would be supposed that the region was divided for some reason in two or more sides that declared war on each other. Another hypothesis, and the most accepted, is a war between Kanto and Thessalia. If we take into account that Kanto would be equivalent to a Japanese territory, and Thessalia to an American one, it could emulate the combat between the USA and Japan during the Second World War. Surge could have been sent by Thessalia, his home region, against Kanto. According to this theory, Thessalia won and forced Kanto to place Surge as gym leader. This is feasible considering that in real life, USA won the war. The Hall of Origin is an area that appears in the Spear Pillar, after getting the Azure Flute and playing it. Then a long staircase will appear behind, in which you will find Arceus at level 80. If he is defeated, he will reappear. Just exit and re-enter, play the Azure Flute again and you're done. The room itself consists only of a crystal floor above the spear column. From its name, Origin can be understood to be the place from which Arceus shaped the universe, as indicated by the Pokédex. The song in the Hall of Origin is distinct and unique, plus once you've captured Arceus, you can't go to the Hall of Origin room again. Originally, Jynx had black skin in its original design in the red and blue editions. This led to accusations of racism for reflecting the African American stereotype, so its skin became purple and its hair color lighter in the Pokemon Gold and Silver versions released in the West. Since then, the new design replaced the original one worldwide. This is a reference to a spooky event that took place in Pokemon X and Y, and to which many are still trying to find a rational explanation. It happened in Lumio City, where we could access a building that allowed us to know the contents of our heart. There, if you take the elevator to the second floor, you will find a very dark secret. When you get out of the elevator, your character will be immobilized by the sudden appearance of a mysterious young woman right behind you. The music will stop, as will your character, stunned by fear. It will be then that the girl will utter the following sentence. "No, you're not the one." After that, the girl will disappear. You will be afraid, but also eager to know more. After this, go to the 4th floor of the hotel in the same Lumio City. There you will find the same young woman again. The young woman urges us to shut up, because she can't hear the elevator. If we go to the train station and press the A button when our character is looking at the sign with the timetables, we can read the following message: "I'm going to get help. Wait for me in the usual place." It is unknown if she is referring again to the elevator. The only thing that is 100% clear is that we are facing a very dark secret of the saga. Level 5. The theory that Ash is in a deep coma has been rumored for quite a few years. The coma hypothesis is one of the most popular Pokemon theories. We are talking about a logical and plausible explanation as to why Ash never grows up, and in fact, this theory is born as a result of a traumatic event in the first episode of the anime. According to the coma theory, the first episode of the anime would be completely real. Everything would go on as normal until Ash Ketchum misses his Pokemon election. Unable to get any of the usual starters Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, Ash picks up Pikachu. Leaving town in search of adventure, he tries to catch a Pidgey, fights a dangerous flock of Spearow, and ends up with his new Pokemon to train, Pikachu, completely injured. In a desperate act, he tries to take his partner to a nearby Pokemon Center on a borrowed bike, but the Spearow group chases after them. In a sudden move, Ash loses control and crashes the bike, falling to the ground. At this point, Pikachu launches a powerful lightning bolt and ends up with all the Pokemon and Ash himself being electrocuted. According to the theory, everything from here on is a dream. There are different versions of the theory. Some say that Ash fell into a coma when the bike crashed, and others when Pikachu used the powerful electric attack. In any case, and whatever the origin of it, they all remark that Ash suffered enough damage to render him unconscious. In fact, every event of the series, every chapter, and every victory achieved in the Pokemon League or in the different gyms of the different regions have taken place in his own mind. One of the incidents surrounding the Pokemon world is that of the episode Cyber Soldier Porygon, released in Japan on December 16, 1997. This was Porygon's debut and farewell, at least in the anime. One of the fight scenes contained a series of repetitive visual effects that caused epileptic seizures. At least 685 viewers ended up being taken to hospitals, according to Japanese media reports. What's interesting is that the visual effects were the result of Pikachu's thunder, as the few who watched the episode, which was not officially broadcast in other countries following the incidents, will be able to attest. Still, Porygon sacrificed himself to keep Pokemon on track. As a result, the anime was suspended 4 months in Japan because of the incidents. The Unknown King is a Pokemon beast that can sleep for centuries, and when it wakes up, it kills anything to feed on. Its goal is said to be the destruction of everything and everyone in the game world. It is said to appear in a version of Pokemon Silver. According to the creepypasta, this Pokemon is quite powerful, as it wiped out other legendary Pokemon. At the end of the story, the Unknown King erases the player's data, implying that it destroys the world. The Buried Alive is one of the supposed visual effects that can be seen in some prints of the first cartridges of Red and Green. Apparently, some programmers of the game put them randomly in some cartridges. Buried Alive is in the Tower of Lavender Town, on the highest floor. As soon as the player arrives there, a dialogue is shown with some disturbing words that read as follows. "You are here. I am trapped. And I'm alone. Very, very lonely. Will you join me?" As soon as the dialogue ends, a battle begins where you have to fight with the Buried Alive. In his team he has a Mook, a Gengar, and 2 White Hands of very high levels. Apparently, the aim is that the player does not win the battle. If you win, the game freezes, since it had not been programmed for victory, but if you lose, the Buried Alive speaks again saying this. Finally, fresh meat. And then a supposed image of your player being devoured by the Buried Alive is shown. And here ends the game. No matter how much you remove the cartridge, restart the game, or want to start over, the image will always be the same, that of the Buried Alive man devouring your character. The Old Chateau is one of the most mysterious locations of Pokemon, because you can see ghosts, but unlike the other regions, in this one, the ghosts are not Pokemon, but people. We can see a little girl coming out of a room. In the same room you can see a pair of eyes in the painting. When you get closer they disappear, and if you change room they follow you, depending on the position. Another event occurs in the dining room. When you enter, you will see an old man on the other side of the table, who seems to be a butler. This one will float off to the left and leave. What causes intrigue is to know what happened to these characters. Some have the theory that Rotom, the Pokemon that can be found in that location, ended their lives, But this isn't confirmed, so this is another mystery that we may never know what truly happened.